Growing up, my grandparents had a ranch. They raised and sold cattle, they harvested hay and oats, collected farm dogs by the dozen. It wasn't a big operation or anything, but it was pretty cool. They weren't alone either. There are over 2 million farms and ranches across the United States as of 2019 anyway, most of which you've never heard of. Some are more well known for just being huge or historic, like the XIT Ranch and the King Ranch here in Texas. And then of course there's ranches like Skywalker Ranch, which is the home of Lucasfilm, and South Fork Ranch, which is the home of the Ewing family on the TV show Dallas. And then there's Skinwalker Ranch, which is home to, according to legend, scary humanoid creatures, mutilated livestock, ghosts, giant unkillable wolves, electronic disturbances, and UFOs. It's almost like an amusement park of the paranormal, or 15 X-Files episodes in one spot. But if we're being pedantic, it's not famous because of what happened there. It's famous because, well, if you've heard of Skinwalker Ranch, it's because you've been exposed to the barrage of media about this place. Books, movies, feature documentaries, podcasts, episodes of popular TV shows, and as of last year, they finished up their second season of a reality show on the Ancient Aliens channel. I'm sorry, the History Channel. Keep forgetting they still call themselves that. And that show is super popular. Its finale ranked #1 in its time slot. Without a doubt, Skinwalker Ranch is a valuable commodity at this point. Regardless of what's happening there, it is pulling in millions upon millions of dollars. And of course, I've received millions upon millions of requests for a video about it. Probably because I did a UAP video earlier this year, which was universally beloved. But you know what? It is an interesting story. And if nothing else, it's become sort of a pop culture phenomenon, which makes me kind of wonder exactly how we got here. So how did we get here? All good mysterious places have a mysterious backstory. It's kind of like architecture. You need a good foundation to build the spooky on top of. And Skinwalker Ranch is a place that seems ready-made for the spoopy. Skinwalker Ranch is located in northwest Utah in the Uinta Basin. It's close to Ballard, Utah, and consists of 2.1 square kilometers, though some sites listed as 1.9 square kilometers in size. It was owned by the Myers family from the early 1930s to 1994. And they sold it to cattle ranchers named the Sherman family, and in fact, sometimes the property is still referred to as Sherman Ranch. But the Shermans only lived there for 2 years before selling it to billionaire businessman and aerospace executive Robert Bigelow. Bigelow is famously a believer in UFO phenomena and wanted to study the area after hearing about some of the Shermans' experiences on the property. Bigelow owned the property for 20 years, during which time the land was investigated by his group, the National Institute for Discovery Science. But in 2016, Bigelow sold the property for $4.5 million to a shell company called Adamantium Real Estate, who immediately shut down all roads to the ranch, lined the property with barbed wire, and installed security cameras around the perimeter. But maybe the most telling clue about what their plans were for Skinwalker Ranch was when they trademarked the term Skinwalker Ranch in 2018. Literally within a year, a feature documentary on Skinwalker Ranch came out, and production began on the now popular and lucrative Skinwalker Ranch reality show. Could I sound more cynical right now? All right, now would be a good time to disclose that yes, I am severely biased on this topic. I've been pretty open about my disdain for reality shows and the manipulation of reality that they engage in. I did a video way back early in the channel where I talked about Duck Dynasty and how the guys who are on that show were like regular middle-class dudes with no beards or anything, and then they got cast in this show, grew out their beards, and made millions of dollars selling merchandise. That's the grift. And it happens with a lot of reality shows. So yeah, the fact that there's a reality show around this thing just immediately sets off alarm bells for me. But is that a fair thing to say here? Is that what's going on here? Is the guy behind Adamantium Holdings running some kind of grift? Well, let's take a look at the guy behind the curtain. His name is Brandon Fugall. He's a real estate mogul and VC investor out of Utah. Fugall had a religious upbringing in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is a fancy way of saying he grew up Mormon. And according to interviews with him, this is what spurred his interest in the paranormal. You know, the idea that we could have proof that there's more out there to reality in the universe than what we can see, this would be the ultimate validation of his faith. But he's an interesting guy. He's got a huge movie memorabilia collection. He's passionate about 80s music, collects Porsches and Lamborghinis and that kind of stuff. And he's also joined an investment group that wants to resurrect the woolly mammoth. Fugall told Utah Business in 2020 that he purchased the ranch as a skeptic, believing there would be natural explanations for all the strange activity. But he added, quote, "What we are witnessing could be evidence that we live in a multidimensional universe, that we are not alone, that we may be interacting with other entities, other intelligence." Fugall hopes that discoveries on the ranch can help prove that humans are part of a bigger plan, that we're not just some random event, that there is meaning and purpose to our existence. And you know what, honestly, if he's sincere about that, and he does seem sincere in the interviews I've seen of him, Awesome, great, I am down for that. The question becomes, how does making a lucrative reality show out of this further that effort? You know? Is it just that getting the word out might bring in more researchers that might come in and help out? Are they going to reinvest the money that's made by the show into the research part of it? Is it a have your cake and eat it too kind of thing? I want to note that we did reach out to Mr. Fugall to get some answers to those questions, and he was responsive at first, but when we threw those questions at him, we didn't really hear anything back from him after that. Now, I want to be clear, he's a busy guy. He might have just not had time to get back to it. I'm not trying to throw any wild accusations out there or anything. I only say that just to get the point across that we did try to cover our bases on that and get his side of the story. All right, so let's talk about the ranch itself. What's the deal with this place? The Uinta Basin is the geological remains of the prehistoric Uinta Lake that was formed in the late Tertiary period about 2 million years ago. The basin is surrounded by the Uinta and Wasatch Mountains and the Roan and Book Cliffs. It's up to 10,000 feet above sea level and covers more than 9,000 square miles. And prehistoric sites show that it was inhabited thousands of years ago by the Archaic and Fremont peoples, and then more recently by the Ute tribe. Fathers Dominguez and Escalante were the first Europeans in the area when they traveled through in 1776. And Brigham Young sent a small party to explore the basin in 1861 as a possible place to settle, but the party reported that the area was valueless. Abraham Lincoln created the Uinta Indian Reservation that same year, and gilsonite, which is a kind of asphalt, was discovered in the basin around 1888. The land contains oil, too. It has more than 8,000 gas wells and 2,000 oil wells, with mineral rights being the primary income source for the Uinta and Ouray Indian Reservation. And then there's fracking, which has been occurring there since the 1960s, and it comes with some of its own problems. A Rolling Stone article in 2015 concluded that the ground air in the basin was, quote, fraught with carcinogenic gases like benzene, rogue emissions from oil and gas drilling. In fact, a high level of volatile organic compounds in the area has been floated around as one of the reasons why so many cattle get sick and die in the area. Even Fugall is cautious about the emissions, saying, quote, I have 4 kids, but they've never been to the ranch. The danger is real, and we have to approach the ranch with a degree of reverence and caution. A lot of the lore around Skinwalker Ranch comes from the indigenous tribes that have inhabited the area for thousands of years. The Uinta and Ouray Reservation stretches across 3 counties in the basin. It's the second largest Native American reservation in the U.S., covering 4.5 million acres. Anthropologists say the Utes migrated to the northern Colorado Plateau between 1,000 and 2,000 years ago. And the Utes are talented artists, specifically known for their religious and ceremonial beadwork and leatherwork. In their religion, they trace their origin to a half-man, half-wolf god named Senoyif. They also believe that all the physical elements and features in the world are spiritually alive. Their oral history contains sightings of weird creatures in the area, and they take this lore very seriously. According to UFO investigator Junior Hicks in an interview with George Knapp in 2002, quote, they think the Skinwalkers are powerful spirits that are here because of a curse that was put on them generations ago by the Navajos. The Utes say that the ranch is the path of the Skinwalker. So what is a Skinwalker exactly? Well, according to lore, Skinwalkers are kind of malevolent witches that can transform themselves into bears, birds, coyotes, wolves, and other animals. They're known to the Navajo as Yi-Nald-Lushi, which translates to, with it, he goes on all fours. Legend says that Skinwalkers are usually shamans who kind of go over to the dark side by participating in forbidden rituals and ceremonies that summon evil forces. So I guess if shamans are the Jedi, then Skinwalkers are the Sith. Belief in Skinwalkers is still pretty strong in the tribes in the area. In fact, many of them won't talk about it at all because it's believed that if you say its name, then you kind of evoke the being, you know, it's like he who shall not be spoken kind of thing. So with that history and lore behind it, the list of unexplained mysterious events happening at the ranch is pretty extensive, including cattle mutilations, sightings of strange humanoid figures, UFOs, light beams hitting the basin, poltergeist phenomena, the appearance of portals, balls of light, radiation blasts, and electronic malfunctions. While there are claims of UFO sightings that go back to the 1950s in the Uinta Basin, most of what we think of as Skinwalker Ranch activity started only in 1994 when the Shermans moved there. For example, the Shermans found a dead cow on the ranch after a UFO sighting there. They told the Deseret News in 1996 that there was, quote, a peculiar hole in the center of its left eyeball, but was otherwise untouched with no trace of blood. There were no traces of footprints, predators, or tire tracks, and a chemical-like odor was also present. Another dead cow with a similar hole in its left eye was found later. There was also a 6-inch hole about an inch deep carved out of the cow's rectum along with the same chemical smell. What is up with aliens and butts? Anyway, cows began disappearing, more mutilated cows showed up, there were metallic sounds at night, beams of light, crop circles, you name it, all this stuff was happening at the ranch. In one story, Terry Sherman claimed to have seen a blue orb moving across the ground, and then his dogs kind of went nuts and chased it into a wooded area. He heard the dogs yelp and then silence. And when he went out the next morning to check and see what had happened, he found 3 patches where the grass had died, and in the middle of the patches was this little black, lumpy, greasy thing, like the dogs had been incinerated. Yeah. If you want to hear more about the Shermans' experiences, I've got links down in the description. You can go read all about it. So as a guy with 2 dogs, if something like that had happened to me, I think I would get the hell out of there as fast as possible. And it seems that the Shermans are the same. They're no different. So that's why after only 2 years, they sold the property to Bigelow. Which makes you wonder, if the place was so freaky that the Shermans yeeted out of there after only 2 years, then what did the Myers family see? They owned that place for 60 years. And the answer to that question is where things really get weird, because apparently what they saw was nothing. Kenneth John Myers and his wife Edith owned the property before they sold it to the Shermans, and they're not with us anymore. But Kenneth's brother Garth has gone on record as saying that they never saw anything paranormal there. He spoke to Frank B. Salisbury, PhD, who published a book called The Utah UFO Display, and said, quote, "There was nothing, unequivocally, absolutely nothing that went on while Edith and my brother lived there." And he claims that after the Shermans sold the ranch, Bigelow called Garth and asked why he never told anyone about the UFOs. And according to the book, he responded by saying, quote, "I told them they didn't get there until the Shermans got there." Yikes. So look, the skeptic in me sees a ranch that was owned by this family for a really long time, nothing going on there, and then they sell it to this Sherman couple that move in there, and suddenly there's all this paranormal stuff going on, and they're telling all these stories about this crazy stuff, and then they sell it to this eccentric billionaire who's into that kind of thing, make a massive profit off of it. He keeps it for a little while, then sells it for even more money to this Adamantium Holdings company, which is now making a reality show and money hand over fist. It's just generations of people profiting off of this story. But the wrench in this theory is that the Shermans actually only sold the property for $200,000. They sold it for less than they bought it for. They took a loss on this thing. They moved away and have refused to ever talk about what happened there ever since. They've never sold any books or tried to profit off of it in any way. Part of that might be because of a non-disclosure agreement they might have signed with Bigelow, but still. And there's nothing really from their past that would indicate that they would do something like this. Terry Sherman was a well-respected breeder of top-quality cattle, and award-winning cattle back in New Mexico before he bought the ranch in Utah. And before he moved there, he had never lost even 1% of his cattle. And then he moves there and just they're dying all over the place. It's said that the loss of this cattle hit the family's finances really hard, not to mention just the psychological stress of it all. Now, if you wanted to double down on the cynicism, you could probably make the argument that he wasn't doing as well in the business as he used to. His reputation and his pride was taking a hit, so he kind of had to conjure up this crazy story to save face. But it is weird that the people who set this whole scheme into motion, according to the whole grift theory, are the people that profited the least from it. One more thing worth mentioning is the issue of digging on the ranch. If you've seen the show, they're very, very serious about not digging on the ranch. Apparently digging is what kind of stirs up all the spirits and entities and causes all kinds of crazy stuff to happen. But could the whole no digging thing stem from something a lot more mundane? Remember that the Uinta Basin is loaded with fossil fuels like gas and oil and asphalt and whatnot? Well, according to Garth Myers, the purchase agreement from the Myers to the Shermans stipulated that the Myers retained mineral rights underneath the ground. In other words, if somebody were to dig around and find some bubbling crude, then that would belong to the previous owners, so they don't want you to do that. Again, that's Garth Myers' theory. Another one has to do with those volatile organic compounds I was talking about earlier. It is possible that digging may release some of those into the air and might be the cause of some of the claimed medical issues that's seen on the show. And yet another reason one might not want to dig there is because there might be radioactive fallout from some of the nuclear blasts that were tested between 1951 and 1962. Those were tested in Nevada, but it's thought that the fallout fell over areas of Utah, specifically this area in the Uinta Basin. So yeah, digging might stir up ancient spirits or radioactive dirt, neither of which sound like a good time to me. So we talked about the Myers, we talked about the Shermans, we talked about the current owner. Now let's talk about the one, the only, Robert Bigelow, Paranormal Gigolo. You know what, just real quick, for the record, I like Robert Bigelow. I think he's got some really great ideas. He's a little kooky, but it's fine. So Bigelow bought the ranch in 1994 and then immediately set out the National Institute for Discovery Science in 1995 with the specific intention to study this ranch. And they did so for 20 years. So what did they find? Well, one thing they experienced was an ice circle that mysteriously appeared in 2002. The circle measured 5 feet 9 inches in diameter and was found in an irrigation canal, and it was a 1/4 inch deep. Shavings around the circle indicated that it had been etched into the ice. There was no evidence of melted ice, and there were no markings, tracks, or prints in or around the circle either. The case went unsolved. And there were other stuff that they ran across too, like strange bits of metal and a lot of electronic disturbances. I'll put a link down in the description where you can see all the stuff that they were investigating, not just on the ranch, but in general. But I actually kind of lied a second ago when I said that they studied it for 20 years because that's not technically true. NIDS was actually disbanded in 2004, but it was replaced with another group, a much more secretive group called the Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies Group. And nobody really knew what they had going on until this year. Remember back in the spring of this year when all that UFO stuff came out and there was that report to Congress and everything about the US government, researching aliens and whatnot? Well, that program was called ATIP, the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program. And if you were paying close attention during all that, you might have seen Robert Bigelow's name come up, that he was working with them in some way. Which isn't a surprise to me, he's super into that stuff, but this is what he was doing for that program. He was researching Skinwalker Ranch. Also, Harry Reid, the senator that helped fund the program, he's a personal friend of Robert Bigelow's. And Bigelow's Advanced Aerospace Studies program lost its funding in 2012 when the Defense Department stopped doing ATIP. So Bigelow's researchers had government funding to study Skinwalker Ranch for 8 years. And it would be great to know what they found, but it's classified. And after that, research kind of stalled. He kind of just owned the land for a few years there until somebody got the idea for a TV show. So look, here are the prevailing theories around Skinwalker Ranch. A shaman is trapped in an alternative timeline and is causing havoc. The ranch is a portal for interdimensional travel for beings and UFOs to pass through into our world. The US government made contacts with extraterrestrials, but they're trying to cover it up. It's a spot for extraterrestrials to study us and our reactions to their presence. And it's a scam perpetrated by the Shermans, Bigelow, and Fugall to make money. I mean, scam is a big word. I mean, Bigelow wasn't running a scam. He's been researching this kind of stuff for a long time. He's legitimately interested in it and talks about it a lot. In fact, he's kind of risked his whole reputation and career on it. And look, it's very possible Brandon Fugall is the same way. He's legitimately interested in researching this stuff, but, research costs money and he wants it to be well funded. So we'll make a reality show out of it. It's compelling stuff. People would want to watch it. He's not wrong about that. Like, maybe this is one of those cases where the smart thing to do and the scammy thing to do just kind of happen to be the same thing. Hell, maybe he was inspired by the Mars One program. Mars One was a privately funded program to take people to Mars, and the way they were going to pay for it was by making it into a reality show. The idea was people would do research and establish the Mars base and do all the science stuff, but they'd make a reality show at the same time. Yeah, it didn't work out very well. But being a businessman, I'm sure Brandon Fugall ran the numbers and was able to ascertain that this was more likely to be successful than the Mars One program, because despite what you might have heard, it is harder to get to Mars than to get to Utah. But yeah, we'll make a TV show and we'll do all the things you got to do to make a TV show work and manufacture drama and all that kind of stuff. But in the process, we'll do some actual research and hey, what if we actually found something? That would be huge. I am willing to give the benefit of the doubt here. That might be exactly what Brandon Fugall is doing. I'm still not convinced that doing a reality show is the best way to do that, but his intentions might be pure. I guess we'll just have to see where all this money goes. But you know what? Who cares? It's fun. I've watched it. It's fine. I mean, reality shows aren't my thing, but clearly a lot of other people enjoy them. And I'm sure it was a nice escape over the last couple of years for a lot of people, when they probably really needed one. I cannot believe I am defending the Skinwalker Ranch reality show. I didn't think I would land here. Shit. Honestly, I came to this video ready to throw down. I was ready to expose the fraud. And here I am defending it. Ultimately, they're making entertainment. And on the off chance there is something weird going on there, then that will increase the odds of them finding it. So I don't know, what do you think? Good thing, bad thing, dumb? Got any favorite scenes from the show? Discuss your favorite theories down in the comments. And if it is aliens coming here, where do you think they're coming from? Kepler 16b, TRAPPIST-1e? A few years back, NASA put together some travel posters to imagine what it would be like to travel to places like that. And I just got posters to put up on my wall of those, thanks to today's sponsor, Displate. Displate is an online store where you can buy photo and art printed directly on metal plates, which you can choose from thousands of independent artists in pretty much every style and subject you can imagine, from movies to video games, anime, travel, landscapes, the list goes on and on. And what's really cool about Displate is that they're really easy to hang up and swap out because you stick them to the wall with magnets. Just clean the spot on the wall, lay down an adhesive base, stick the magnet on top of it, and then you're hanging art on your wall. No nails, no holes, and because it's magnetic, you can move and adjust however you need. It even comes with a tiny leveling device and template so you can get it just right. And because I share a house with somebody who might not always want nerd stuff on the wall, I also got some vintage travel posters from places we visited. And that's what I think is cool about Displate. It's flexible and it's easy to switch out posters and keep things interesting. And hey, little Christmas hack here, since they basically have every interest under the sun, you can just go to Displate and order something for everyone on your list and get on with your life. And if you sign up at the link below, you can get discounts starting at 34% for 2 plates and up to 43% for 5 or more. It's a pretty sweet deal. So if you've never heard of Displate or you've never checked them out, just go to the link down in the description below and start browsing. And again, they've got everything under the sun you can imagine. There's a lot of cool stuff. It's a lot of fun to go look at, so go check it out. Big thanks to Displate for supporting this video, and a huge shout out to the Answer Files on Patreon and the members in the member community here on YouTube that are being awesome, joining in the conversation, just doing cool stuff. I love all you guys. I got some new members' names that I need to shout out real quick. We got Margaret Sampson, Villain in Glasses, Norris Edwards, Robert Slaughter, Martin Vescaru, Dave, Becky Taylor, Lisa Langley, David Milyej, 1 Cent, Wreckage Rider, Calm Seas, Matt Helmrich, Brent Parks, Ronnie Smith, John Tehan, and Dark Nebula. Ooh, that's a great name. Thank you guys so much. If you would like to join them, get early access to videos, access to exclusive live streams for only Patreons and members, you can just click the little join button right below this video. Please do like and share this video if you liked it, and if this is your first time here, maybe click on this one because Google thinks you might like that because they've been watching you and all that kind of stuff. Also, any of the little things down here, the thumbnails with my face on them, you can click on those, and if you enjoy them, I invite you to subscribe. I come back with videos every Monday. And I think that's it for now. You guys go out there, have an eye-opening rest of the week, stay safe, and I'll see you next Monday. Love you guys. Take care.